Next, we're going to actually implement the feature for creating new tags when you create a recipe in the system. So the first thing we're going to do is open up our serializers.py inside our app/recipe directory. We're going to start by moving our tag serializer above the recipe serializer. And the reason we need to do that is because we need to assign the tag serializer as a nested serializer to our recipe serializer. And because we've currently defined our tag serializer at the bottom of the file, this isn't going to work because we're going to try and reference it before it's actually being assigned. So the first step is simply to just copy this tag serializer, just do cut, so we'll remove that, and we'll just go right to the top of the file, and we will go above recipe serializer here, and we're just going to paste it in. Okay, great. So now we can use this tag serializer as a nested serializer to our recipe serializer. So the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to add a new line below the docstring of our recipe serializer. I'm going to type tags equals tag serializer, and then many equals true, and required equals false. We're going to make tags an optional part of our recipe, but we can provide them if we want. Okay, so the many equals true just says this is going to be a list of items. So we're going to have a list of our tags assigned to our recipe. Next, what we need to do is add this new tags field to our fields here. So we'll type tags at the end, and this enables this field to be managed through this model serializer. Okay, so in theory, this is all we need to do in order to view tags for a recipe. So see the tags that are assigned to that recipe. By default, these nested serializers are read only. So that means you can read the values, but you can't create items with those values. We want to add the feature to be able to create them, so we need to do this by adding some custom logic to our recipe serializer class. We're going to do that by adding a new method to the class that allows us to override the behavior of the create functionality. So below class meta, we're going to add def create self and validated data. And we are going to add the docstring create a recipe. So this is going to be some custom logic that we add for creating recipes via this serializer. The first line is going to be tags equals validated data.pop. I'm going to pop tags, and all that means is remove the tags object from the validated data and assign it to the tags variable here. So if you were to just say get, it would do the same thing, except it would keep the tags inside the validated data. We want it to actually remove it if it exists. So if tags exists in validated data, we're going to remove it from validated data and assign it to a new variable called tags. And if it doesn't exist, we're just going to default to this empty list here. Then we're going to type recipe equals recipe.objects.create, and we're going to use the double asterisk validated data. So this is why we are using pop here, because we want to make sure we remove the tags before we create the recipe using this here, because if you were to just pass in tags directly to the recipe model, that's not going to work because it's a recipe model. It expects only the values for the recipe, and it expects tags to be assigned as a related field. So it expects it to be created separately and added as a relationship to recipe from the many to many field that we added. So that's the logic that we can add now. We'll do auth user equals self.context request.user. This just gets the authenticated user. Then we'll do for tag in tags, tag underscore object, obj, or obj, and then created equals tag.objects.get or create. User equals auth underscore user, and then we'll do asterisk asterisk tag. Okay, so then we'll do recipe.tags.add tag underscore obj. Finally, what we're going to do is return the recipe value. So we need to return a value from this create method in order for the rest of the functionality to work. So level with the for loop here. So make sure the indentation is not inside the for loop. You want it to be level with the for loop here. You do return recipe. Okay, so now let's talk through what this does. So we're doing the pop tags, as I explained. It removes tag from validated data and assigns it to a variable called tags. Then with the rest of the validated data, so everything excluding tags, we're going to create a new recipe with those values. Then we're getting the authenticated user. So because we're doing this in a serializer and not the view, we need to use this self.context request. The context is passed to the serializer by the view when you're using the serializer for that particular view. So it's a way that you can get the context of the request from the actual serializer code. So this will give us the authenticated user. Then what we're doing is we're looping through all of the tags that we popped from the validated data. So each of those tag values, we're going to loop through each one. And we're going to call get or create. So get or create is a helper method that's available for your model manager, and it does basically what the name explains. So it gets the value if it already exists, or if it doesn't exist, it creates a value with the values that we pass in. So if a tag exists in the database for the user and the name that's provided, then it's going to retrieve that existing tag. If it doesn't already exist, then it's going to create a new one. So this is going to give us our functionality to not create duplicate tags in the system. We're doing asterisk tag here. We could easily do name equals tag name. However, the reason we do the double asterisk is we want to remove, or we want to take all of the values that are passed into the tag. So let's say at some point in the future, we add new values to the tag. So we allow the users to create tags that have different variables associated with them other than just a name. We would want to support that in this functionality. And this is a way to just kind of future-proof the code and make sure if we do add any additional things to our tag, so new fields to the tag, then these will be supported without us having to modify this code here. Okay, so that in theory is all we need to do to add this feature. If we save the code, we can go and run the tests again and we'll see if they pass. Okay, so the test passed successfully. We have now successfully added the feature to create new tags in the system when we create recipes.